Crazy.
My house for 160.
Good morning, everyone. Today's Thursday, May 26, 2022, and we're here for a work session. And as always, we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Frank, can you please take the lead?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Frank. This weekend is Memorial Day. Memorial Day is an American holiday. It's observed on the last Monday of May, honoring the men and women who perished while serving our country. It is a time to honor and remember those who gave their ultimate sacrifice, their lives. To those in uniform serving today and to those who have served in the past, we honor you this weekend and every day. Thank you for your service, and providing a quote from Claudia Pemberton: "America without her soldiers would be like God without his angels." We have just one announcement this morning. The Riverhead Tomcats are looking for families to host their baseball players. Host families are the foundation of the Summer Collegiate Baseball League. It is a great experience in creating memorable bonds throughout the players and their host families. We all know the excitement of hitting a home run. Now imagine the comforting feeling of having home to run. For information on becoming a host family, please contact Patty White at 631-833-1353. You can email her at PAW24 optonline, PAW24 @optonline.net, or www.hamptonbaseball.org. It's critical. They may be considering canceling teams, games, and possibly even the entire season. So it's critical that we as a community come forward. I myself hosted a player about 5 years ago, and it was a great experience. He came from Atlanta. He was at Penn State. He's now graduated and working in his field, and we've created quite a bond with his family. And so if you can do that, it's only a 6 weeks, and you'll be doing something great for the community. All right, now
Before we start, could I just make
sure.
one quick announcement? I'm sorry. For anybody that doesn't know, Riverhead lost a religious leader this past week, Bishop Emil Sello, who was formerly an auxiliary bishop of the Diocese of Rockville Center, died on May 21st, 2022. He was 91 years old and served in the diocese for more than 65 years. He was described as a humble man, a scripture scholar, a faithful pastor, and a dedicated bishop. All of us over at St. John the Evangelist enjoyed when we came to church and we saw that he was saying the Mass, because he was so knowledgeable and he was so spiritual that he imparted a lot of that out to the congregation. I personally enjoyed his homily so much. But if anybody is interested, the Mass of Transferal will be this evening, Thursday, May 26th at 7:30 over at the Church of St. John the Evangelist, and they're having a wake from 2 to 5 today as well in the afternoon. Just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you, Frank, and I know you're engaged in the church
Yep.
at St. John's, and
Before we get started, I just want to take a moment just to send some thoughts and prayers out to the people in Texas. The super tragic shooting, senseless. It makes no sense, no rhyme or reason. You can't understand it. School is supposed to be a safe haven for our children, and to lose 19 and 2 teachers it's just unthinkable. And we as a country need to come together and have to do something to put an end to this. Mental illness has to be addressed. Gun checks have to be addressed more seriously. And it's just so tragic seeing those young faces on TV, and you send your kid off to school, and it's the last time you see your kid. And just thoughts and prayers to everybody in Texas.
that was definitely a cowardly act. I agree, Tim. Okay, moving on to our first discussion item, which is an exciting one, a matter surrounding possible town hall expansion. This is not the first time that this topic has arisen, it's been addressed. has been discussed, has been surveyed, and it's about time that we get to some real business in regards to dealing with the overcrowding in our courthouse and the town hall facilities. So today, I'm pleased to have Marty Simlewski here, along with our engineers, Drew Dillingham and Ken Testa, to present the latest version of what the new town hall may look like. Tim, I know you've been working on this. Why don't you start this off today?
Well, as you know, we have been looking at many different variations over the years, Marty, over many, many, many years. But in a sense, that all kind of helped us come together to where we are today, because we learned a lot from looking at the old plans and the old thoughts and ideas. We've investigated many options, and today I think what they're going to present is probably the most economically feasible and makes the most sense and allows the expansions to be done without upsetting normal business days for either the police department, justice court, or the town board. So with that, I'd like to ask Marty and Ken and Jason and Drew, come on up, and we'll go over what we've compiled here. And I think you'll be a little bit excited at the end of the day here.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for being here. That looks like some piping on your tie.
That's
type
actually,
of-
it's actually a Frank Lloyd Wright tie.
Okay, very interesting.
Thank you Supervisor Aguirre and members of the town board. As Tim had said, we've, I guess after the town had looked at the Kmart building as an option for a town hall, Ken and Drew gave me a call and he said, you know, didn't you have a plan from way back when you looked at keeping everything here? And sure enough, we dusted off a plan from 2009 that incorporated the Justice Court into this building and expanded this building. That layout was actually originally prepared with Justice Smith back in 2009. So here we are, basically 13 years later, and what we did is we took a look at the previous program that we had sketched up, and it was not adequate because the needs of town hall had changed since then. So we went and took a look at the Kmart plan and the program that was established with that, and it was apparent that based on the size of that building, that the space was pretty much just filled up. So it was a little bit overdone in terms of area. So our first step was to identify the program that was required. We set up a series of meetings where we met with the justices and all of the department heads in the town. We went over all their needs based on the existing plan, and we went through a series of design layouts, as you had mentioned. What's up on the board here, and is the first page that you have in your packet, is this is the existing town hall. That's exactly what's here now. On the bottom left is the existing building and planning department across the street, and above that is the existing accounting and IT office in Town Hall West.
Marty, I just want to interrupt very briefly. This information will be put on the net today,
Okay,
so we'll provide copies once it's out in the open.
yes, I can provide PDF copies
Yeah.
also.
And then we'll get it to Devin, and whatever presented, I think there's a couple of items that you have. Can you just provide it for us so we can just put it up? Okay?
Sure,
Thank
absolutely.
you so much.
No problem. So basically what we had done is we went through the program with with all of the department heads, and I didn't give you all of the sketches because we had done so many through the process. What I have here is really the final sketch, but I just want to walk you through what happened. We took a look at the previous plan for Town Hall and we expanded it. You know, we said, all right, what if we make the addition bigger to give Justice Court more room? And we met with Justice Court, and it really was not an ideal fit, bringing Justice Court into this building with Town Hall. They really should have two completely separate entrances. There should be a separate employees entrance. You need a secure entrance. So when looking at that plan, and it also would have been, you know, very expensive with the extent of the addition that was required for the two separate entrances, lobbies, et cetera. And the fact that they're not a good fit together, we pretty much realized that that was not the way to go, that the 2009 plan was not the correct direction. In our discussions with the justices, one of the things we talked about was Justice Court being a standalone, which they feel is an ideal situation, having a separate Justice Court So we started then looking at a campus-style development, knowing that we have the northern edge of the property to develop. We could build a justice court there, move them out of PD, upgrade police department with handicapped access and alter that area, and then add on to this building. So that was the next approach that we had taken. We went through that layout, and that was one that we had actually defined all of the spatial needs of all the departments. As a matter of fact, we came to a department head meeting. I had given everybody a copy of the preliminary sketches of their space based on what the program was that we discussed. And basically, we realized that everything would fit based on the footage that they required based on our study. In looking at that, we also discussed the possibility of building on a second floor on the police department for the justice court there. So to build onto the second floor on the PD, move the justice court up there, and at the same time add a second floor onto this building to expand the needs for town hall. Couple of things, that was really where we had gotten to, and a few things really concerned us. We're dealing with a couple of projects now that are additions and alterations. And whenever you're dealing with existing facilities, it's very, very costly. You're building over an existing building. There are always a lot of change orders because you uncover things that you never imagined that you would find. So it's a very expensive proposition when we looked at it, and it's also it's doable, but it's the most difficult. It would actually require town hall to be shut down at times, including for extended periods of time. You could not swing 10,000-pound pieces of steel over town hall while it's occupied. The cost would be higher because there'd be a lot of overtime, and it's all, of course, based on prevailing wage rates. So it would be very expensive, and it would only go up. There was, there's some traps in there, in terms of dealing with the existing facility. So then what we looked at was, we had the footprint for the Justice Court, which was a standalone building on the north end of the lot as a campus style. That had a footprint of about 10,000 square feet. And we had found that with the town hall's footprint really needed to be just over 30,000 square feet. So in doing that, what we then looked at was, what if we built a new town hall on that site as a campus development? That would allow you to do the construction somewhat seamlessly, okay, where you do the construction, move into the new building, then this building would renovate, move Justice Court in here, and then you could put the handicapped access onto the police department and alter the area that is now occupied by Justice Court for the needs of the police department. So what we have here on the screen, what you have in front of you, is that last scheme that we came up with, which ended up being the most economical, the most straightforward in terms of the constructability, and we think ultimately the best plan. So this page here shows the current site. Right here is the current town hall building. This is the current police department, and here is the footprint of the new town hall building. What we did is we maintained the accesses on Howell. We added parking on the northern end, placed the building here in a campus style. The town hall stays exactly as it is in terms of its footprint. We altered the parking, and we provided additional parking across the front of the building. Basically, we looked at a shared parking option where we had come up with a requirement of 288 cars. We have 241 cars that are on site. One of the things to keep in mind, the 288 cars included both of the justice courts, because they will have two courtrooms, fully occupied at 75 people per room, and an expanded meeting room for town board at 150 people, all being occupied at the same time. So we think there is a shared parking factor there that would allow this to be adequate. So what we also did is we moved this parking a little bit, and we have a plan on moving the Garfield Memorial close to the entrance of Town Hall and close to the flag outside of Town Hall, really in a place it should be. It's a very nice memorial from a real hero of Riverhead. And it really, you never see it. You know, when I drive by, you look at it on the lawn, but it really should be in a location where anybody who comes to Town Hall passes that memorial and remembers him for his sacrifice, especially, you know, coming up on this Memorial Day weekend. With that, what we did was we developed the plan for Town Hall. This is a relatively simple drawing that I had, which is just the basement. Overall, the footprint of the basement is 98 feet by 98 feet. Constructability is very good. We have a 24-foot column grid with 1 foot from the center of the column to the outside face of the wall. Gives us a 98-foot by 98-foot column grid, or a building footprint. So this would be the basement area, which would be utilized for storage. So as you come to the first floor, what we've done, and what I'd like to explain is what this document does. So this is not considered a final plan or a final document by any stretch of the imagination. What we do as architects is we get the program, which we've established. And what this document does is really establishes the fact that we have enough footage in this plan to accommodate the needs of the town. That is really what this does. But if this were to move forward, there would be much more detailed reviews and design reviews with all the department heads, the town board, town engineers, et cetera, moving forward. One of the things you'll see on the side of the page here is a legend, and all of the areas are color-coded, and it has the footage of each of the areas next to their allotted space. If you go back to the existing plan, there is a chart here of all of the existing footages on the existing plan. So when you compare the two, you can see the increase of each department from the existing plan to their new plan. So the first floor plan here includes a secure entrance with a mailroom coming into an expanded lobby. The lobby has a stair and an elevator to the upper levels. Straight ahead are double doors into a new expanded meeting room. The meeting room has an IT room for broadcasting, et cetera, and there are 2 public toilet facilities located off of the lobby here. Also off of the lobby would be the town historian. We like that being near the lobby because it could have a changing display and a showcase window for some of the displays that they have. And then we put the most utilized departments on the first floor, basically being the tax receiver's office and the town clerk's office. They also have an outdoor opportunity for an outdoor walk-up into their general office areas. And based on the requirements that we had reviewed with each of the department heads, these areas do accommodate all their needs. Yeah, I'm not going to go through each space right now and tell you what they have in them, but they do accommodate all of their needs. Generally, private offices, entrance areas, storage, if there's secure storage. All of them have a work area where they could have files, a copier, printer, et cetera, and general office areas.
Going about the future.
Yeah.
So, they took into consideration future needs of departments as well. We asked department heads, do you think you're going to be adding staff? So like in purchasing, they think they might at some point have a second purchasing agent. So we tried to design in the space so that when this building is done and you move in, you're not moving into a building that can't be expanded in the next 10, 15, 20 years. So there is future consideration given to the spaces that are shown on this plan.
With that, we come up to the second floor, and the second floor, again, the elevator and stair come into a second floor lobby area. Off of that lobby, we have a staff area. That would be a staff room that would have vending, a small kitchenette, and it would also have staff-only bathrooms. That was one of the requests that came up, was to have staff bathrooms in addition to the public bathrooms, which we thought was a good idea. So that basically is a staff area. You come down the center hall to the rear stair, emergency egress stair. All of these hallways are 8-foot hallways. So they're the larger hallways, similar to what you have out in front of the meeting room here, not the 6-foot hallways they have on the side. So they're more than adequate in terms of space and people circulating. On the second floor, we have the assessor's office directly off the lobby. We have a janitor's closet. We then have the community development office that has all of their needs with lots of expansion for the future. And then we have code enforcement in the back corner here, and then we have an area here for building and planning combined. That was one of the departments that after the discussion, we did get a little feedback that they wanted to have rooms accessible for, reviewing documents with applicants when they come in, where they could bring them into a small conference room and go over it. Instead of collecting documents and sending them back, they could go over it with them and then tell them what else they needed so they could return with it. So it sort of worked out pretty good where you have basically a building side and a planning side with a combined waiting room and 2 secretary areas. They do have a walkthrough, so it's basically one department, but it's set up as a dual department layout.
And this would allow you to surplus the existing building department across the street. You could use it for another purpose, or you could sell it or rent it, but it would no longer be needed.
Well, I think we'll discuss that later as a board, but we definitely would sell it to offset the cost of the taxpayers. And that way, it's just a good possibility that they're not gonna have to absorb the cost immediately. We can offset some of the costs initially, so.
The other thought we had was over at East End Housing is over in 209 East Avenue.
Yes.
They have a facility there. If we could move them into the new town hall as well, that would allow you to sell that structure.
Yeah, and that's
Which could be
something,
used as a house.
if we go forward with this as a board, that we definitely have to entertain that component, that aspect to offset the taxpayers' costs. So,
Then, as we came up to the 3rd floor, again, the stair and elevator and hallway, we have human resources, the office requirements they have there on the front of the 2nd floor. And then off of the 2nd floor lobby, you have the town board offices and the town supervisor's office. And those are all laid out. Again, the layouts are going to be things that would be reviewed with every department, all of the people, and would be, I've never done a project where when we start with a scope and a preliminary plan that defines the program, where the plan has been the same at the end of the day. There's always, we massage it, we go room by room and go through the design to make sure that all of the requirements are met when you move in to utilize the building. So we have town board and supervisor. On the 3rd level also would be IT and accounting. They would have their offices across from the supervisor's office next to the town board. Right here would be the town attorney's office. They would have the back area directly adjacent to the supervisor's office, and in the far left corner would be purchasing. So after that construction was completed, we then did a preliminary layout of this building without any additions. It's the existing footprint. We would utilize as many of the existing walls and layouts as we could, where basically this is transitioned into a lobby area and with a hallway into 2 courtrooms. This would be a jury courtroom, would remain as is, and a new courtroom would be added next to it. As you come in, there's a secure area with security and a mag here. Off of the public corridor are the public bathrooms, as well as a housekeeping office, and then they have 2 consult rooms for attorneys coming in to meet with people that are going to go before the judge to have a private discussion. As you come to the other end of the hallway, there's a window into the justice court where people could pay fines, etc. And then you have the judges and the justice court area in the existing area currently where the town clerk and the tax receiver are. They also have additional facilities for storage, a lunchroom, their own private bathrooms in addition to the bathrooms in the facility. That area connects to both of the courtrooms through a secure area behind the courtrooms, where you also have the jury room, additional storage, and in the upper left corner of the building is the secure area where they would bring in individuals to go before the judge. We have secure lockup, secure bathroom, secure access and attorney interview rooms for people that are brought in. All of this would have to go for further approval, with the court administration. Again, it's really just a layout where we know that we can accommodate the requirements of the court within the existing footprint of Town Hall. From there, what we did would be the last step, and that is on the police department. This here is an unexcavated area on the lower level, and you see an elevator here. There is a stair here that we took out and created a lower level link to the basement from this elevator so that there's handicapped access. They still have the 2 stairs internally here in the back of the building. And then on the main level, we have it set up where there's an entrance. You could go one way up the stairs or the other way up the elevator, which has a door on each side. So in the lobby, you enter this side. On the upper level and lower level, you enter from the opposite side. That brings you to a new hallway that wraps around between the stair and the elevator for the public to approach, and you would have the window where the desk sergeant is. That would be extended forward to what is now the doorway into the building. So they would gain some space there, and they would gain this entire space where the current Justice Court exits the building. That gives a location for the fire marshal for the fire marshal to have his own space also. So with that, now I'll get to the next part of the presentation. What does it cost? What I have here, the cost of the different components that I spoke about in each of the different schemes. So we had a scheme where we were just doing handicapped access and improvements to PD. We had the scheme where we were adding the Justice Court on top of PD, which then required not only the front elevator and access, but a secure elevator in the back. We had the second floor addition here. We had the standalone court. We had the standalone town hall. So what you see here, this is just their, itemized 1 through 5. The standalone court building, when we completed that, was 11,025 square feet. The cost was approximately $11.5 million, $11,493. The PD, with just a handicapped access and renovations, came in at $1,158,000. The town hall expansion with the second floor over this building, which is the most expensive project because of the type of construction, and again, being over this building, was $19,176,000. The Justice Court addition on the police station and the improvements to the police station for handicapped accessibility was $15,381,000. On the next page, the new standalone town hall, the cost came in at $24,882,000, and the conversion of the existing town hall into Justice Court came in at $4,334,000. So the last thing that's on this page right here is a summary of the different options that we looked at. The first one was the standalone court, the PD alteration, and town hall expansion, which was cost items 1, 2, and 3. That option would be a total of $31,827,000. If you notice below that, I also put down the footage. Now that footage number is all 3 programs combined. It's the police department, Justice Court, and town hall. It does exclude the storage basements because I don't consider them part of program space. So on the first, that option, the total program footage was 61,107. When we looked at the other option, which was adding a second floor onto both buildings, which was items 3 and 4 above, the cost came in at 30. If you just add, again, the items that I had above, the numbers, you just pick them and add them. That's what I did on the bottom. That would be options 3 and 4. That came in $34,557,000. And if you look at the total footage of all facilities was 64,040. One of the reasons that program has a little bit additional footage is because of the second floor additions. You need expanded lobbies that go up to the 3 levels, and you also need not only a handicapped addition on the front of the PD, but you also need a secure addition with a separate elevator on the back of PD for bringing in people that are going to the courts with sheriffs. So that's why the footage on that one is a little bit higher. The third recommendation, which is the one that would be the most straightforward and we feel suits the needs of the town the best would be the new town hall option, with the alteration of this building into the Justice Court, and then the handicapped accessibility and alterations to the police department. That ended up being the least expensive option at $30,778,000. And noticeably, the footage on that is almost identical to the first option. It's $61,197. That 62,000 number, and even the 64 with the second floor additions, we know that our program is right, because when you look at all the options and you add up the footage, it's almost identical, which means that we've got all of the program items very specifically identified. I would note that the costs are based on current projects that we now have that fall under the same category as the town hall. All of these are subject to Wick's law in terms of the bidding environment, so you cannot bid out to one GC. You're required to bid out a minimum of 5 bids for the different trades, so you have 5 insurance policies, 5 general conditions, 5 overhead. And it's also based on New York State prevailing wage rate schedules, which are mandated by the state of New York. I actually had a presentation last night for a project, and when I was there, I had the prevailing wage rate schedule for a project we're working on, and I looked at the rate for a carpenter and 2 helpers at a 35-hour week. Without the core overhead cost of their boss and whatnot, their salary and benefits is $8,900 per 35-hour week for 1 carpenter and 2 helpers under New York State prevailing wage, which is mandated to you and all of the other municipalities by New York State Department of Labor. So just so that you know where the numbers came from. And also, these are based on other projects that we currently have under construction. We have a $14 million project in construction right now in Rockland County for a new municipal building, and these numbers reflect that. We did include a slight increase because we're into an 8% inflation right now, and we did not include any furnishings or movable equipment, computers, et cetera. So this is for the base buildings, and we're pretty confident in the numbers, but again, with inflation, it might be worth, bumping that up a little bit. We'll know when we get there, when we do the bid documents, if you were to move forward. So with that said, if there's any questions or anything I could answer, I'd be glad to.
I have a question, Marty. So how would you phase this? Town hall first, court, then PD?
Correct.
Okay.
And it would be seamless. You'd get town
Right,
hall done,
understood.
everybody moves.
Right. So
So
that's
when,
good.
sorry, we're gonna have limited interruptions of
Correct.
our operations. That's important. That's a good question. Great. It's good to know.
Correct.
Yeah, it definitely limits and there's really no interruption with it. And it also, I think, is probably the quickest way for us to get Justice Court into a new situation, which they so badly need. And
I
that's
really like the
catalyst
integration
behind
of
all
the
this.
town historian into town hall, so that would remove a rental from the Main Street location, but IDA, I believe, is also in there. Is there room for them to come in here as well?
I don't know if they can be under the same.
Oh, they can't be,
Yeah.
okay.
We have to double check that.
All right, but I'm just saying that those
But I
are
think we have to
both
look-
rentals
They're
that
not
we
a
have to incur.
town entity,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
the town historian
Okay.
is, so
That
it's a
was a
little
great
different.
idea.
Yeah.
Save every rental and wherever we can.
Yeah, and that's, one of the points here is a very good one, is that what I always tell clients is beat us up as much as you can. In other words, look at these plans and say, hey, where is this, where is that? Because it makes us do our job. We really have to go in and find all of these things, and our job is to get that information out of you and then put it on paper, or else we're not doing our job. So the more you can tell us in terms of what you see here and what you don't see, the more we go to work and develop this plan. Like I said before, the ultimate plan is going to, have a lot of variation as opposed to what you're looking at right now. This was based on a fairly involved process. We're pretty confident in the program, and we're sure we'd be able to accommodate any additional needs.
And I just want to state one point, and it's very critical. The seniors are staying in the senior center. Because at one time, there was rumors we were going to relocate them, and that's where they know how to travel to, that's where they have their friends. We have a very engaged senior community, and they're going to stay there.
Yeah, one interesting thing is that when you looked at the town hall over there, I know they added some other stuff when you were looking at Kmart, but that building's 100,000 square feet, and really the program, the point we're at in terms of footage is 32,000 feet, so that was about 3 times the size of what you needed, which is why a lot of other things started getting plugged in there.
Yeah, and then ultimately, even they wanted to lease it with the option to buy, and that was gonna be more expensive in the long run than doing this, for sure.
Marty, I know we spoke about possibly having a place where people can engage in front of town hall with possibly an overpass, or maybe somebody can have an event there, a little farmer's market or something. Is there room for that
Yeah,
at
we're
all?
looking at the front of the building. One of the things we wanted to do was take the area that you cross in front of the building. Let me go to the site. What we wanted to do is take a look at the parking area in front of the building, where we could also do that area like with drainable pavers, similar to what they have at, say, the aquarium, and do that with landscaped islands so that you could have that blocked off on the weekend if you had a function, or even if, you had something going on during the day, you could set that up as an alternate area. Plus, we're looking at the siting of the building. I held the building 25 feet off of this corner.
Okay,
If we could site the building a little bit closer to that line, take about 12 feet, about half of that setback, and push it back a little bit further to this corner, that opens up more area in the front of the building. That expands that, not, in addition to that paver parked area, parking area, where it would be, even if the parking lot was not closed off and was utilized, we would still have an area in front of town hall for those types of functions. So we would look at some type of a canopy, and again, really important, having the Garfield Memorial, as well as, the town flag and the American flag at that location. So it would be a nice area we would dress up. That's
it'd be
something
nice to
that,
have people come together, whether you have something to give away, or you have a press conference, or some type of event.
And with the first floor, the lobby being open up for bathroom access, if you do a function on the weekend like that, where the rest of the first floor is secure.
Yeah.
So it works out well.
yeah, that is a good point, because you could have the front of the building opened up, and you could have a function outside, bathroom access, and it's a pretty adequate lobby. We have a nice lobby space, so that could work out very well.
Also, in terms of finances, we're coming off the landfill debt and at the end of this year. So that's one good thing for the taxpayers in terms of the cost of this project. We are finally going to be out from under that. And so this shouldn't be this should be more of a painless transition
That
to
was-
be able to do.
And which properties would be available for sale if we chose
The
to do
building
that?
department,
Building across the street.
Building
what is it,
and
209?
Pulaski Street?
No, we'd have to keep building and grounds at Pulaski
Oh,
Street
okay.
because all their equipment and everything up there.
Okay.
So that makes sense to keep there. But we would, we'd lose, we'd sell, lease, or whatever we decide to do with building and planning, 209 East Avenue, and then we would save the minimal rent that the town historian
Right.
pays.
Buy it back.
So who's gonna occupy the accounting office in Pulaski Street?
That's a good question, and that space will be vacant as well. I mean, one thought we had was it could be rented. If it's feasible to rent it out, or possibly for some other municipal function.
Well, I think this is a great starting point, no doubt about
Yeah.
it.
When can we put the shovel in the ground?
What would have to happen most immediately is, one of the things the town needs is a full topo and utility survey of the entire property. You don't have any updated surveys, so you really need to get a full survey of the whole property.
Test borings.
And we need to get at least 4 test borings done of the property, and then you would have to decide how you're gonna move forward. We've basically just done this as to help the town out, to make a decision, so you'd have to make a decision, and hopefully that would include us coming into an executive session, discussing, moving ahead with the project.
Yeah, Marty, I know you briefly mentioned OCA, the Office of Court Administration. When we have somewhat of a final draft, I would run it by them before we move
Yes.
further. 'Cause I can assure you, they're gonna have changes and that's gonna change the cost, and we gotta engage them in the beginning, obviously, and you know that.
Yeah.
We're not gonna build a building and call them in, and they go, okay, take this wall down, go here, we need another entrance. Is I know the security parameters have changed from the time that that was a justice court. They've changed dramatically, so, now they have different type of glass requirements and certain security and space at certain intervals, so that might be a little bit of a challenge for you, so when you get to that point, you might wanna just show them the plans.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
That's really the most important part of what we do, is all the way through this process. You know, if the project were to move forward in this layout, we would then go back to all the department heads again. Sit down and start looking, okay, here's where we are, now let's really look at it, make sure everything's in there. Let's, you know, and we have a series of those meetings where initially it goes to program, you know, the overall space, to eventually each person's office and where their desk is and where their computer jack and their outlet's gonna be and the phone jack's gonna be, so that when they move in and they set up, everything is exactly right where they planned it to be. That's so, you know, you go from the more global look like this, where you define the program, you define the spaces, then you refine the spaces, then you get into the individual finishes and fit out and, you know, all of their requirements with technology that goes into space. And it's the same with OCA, as well as, you know, as well as the supervisor's office and town board, going over all the requirements for those spaces in detail. And they evolve as we go from here to when you put a shovel in the ground, they'll evolve to where you get to a point that all of the program requirements are met.
Yeah, and one other area, Marty, and we can speak in this regard ourselves, we need to build in the security to the building.
Oh, yeah.
Through the architect. I know that it is the way, the new way of designing buildings. Just recently, we had possible plans to do some security, that's put to the side. But I think the security component, especially now with all these, you know, people just, you know, emotionally going out there and attacking civility and you know, other people, and just these mass shootings. And like Hubbard said earlier, you know, it's a shame, but
Sure.
it's today's society.
Right.
But we still have to keep it open to the public and not make it look like,
Yeah.
you know, separate them from us, and that's
One
important.
of the things that we do in municipal projects we work on, a lot of times municipalities have a vendor that handles the security or handles certain things. There's also a lot of things on state bid, if you don't have somebody that you use. So when we design the building, we build in the infrastructure, all of the wiring.
Great.
And everything's set up for security, everything's set for access, everything's set for data, phone, et cetera, Wi-Fi. So what happens is that's all brought into a server room where we have a double rack, we have all the punch downs, everything is tested and certified, so that when the contractors are done and they walk out, your vendor comes in and they plug in all the endpoint connections, set up their hardware, and do all their programming. So all of the infrastructure for what they need to do is designed into the base bid, and they come in later and finish
It's
it.
great to see that you're addressing the cybersecurity component. So when I took office, we had none, trust me.
Bob wants to save all the computers and bring them over to the new town hall.
Oh, yeah, can't wait for that.
He was looking for a little
So-
extra
so
space in
Marty,
the councilman's office.
Yeah.
Marty, what can we sit
Second
down,
office.
I mean, to get the, so, to, you know, I understand you have to do test holes over there and the topos. And then I'd like to move this as, you know, as quick as possible, not like a regular project that takes 3 years
Well,
or
there's
4 years.
a couple of things you could do. One, from right now, in our industry, breaking ground in the spring of next year is tomorrow. That's, I mean, you have
Understood.
months of design, et cetera, and then bidding. So figure about the bid the end of this year, and then in the ground next year. I would like to think of a 12-month bid for the, a 12-month build for the new town hall. So you'd be looking in 2023 town hall, and then 2024 justice court and PD, having them complete. One thing we will talk about is that you have, we have the Wicks law anyway, so there's 5 primes. There is a mechanism that we've used on other projects where instead of doing all the engineering, where you have, you know, every paint color and tile color, et cetera, when you get the building design done, we've broken up the bids, where we start, for example, put out the site work, concrete, steel, you know, put out the
Infrastructure.
you know, the superstructure of the building. get that in the ground while you're finishing up, you know, the finishes and the tile, and so then have a subsequent bid, so it moves up the start point of the construction. So that's a good thing too, it sort of gets things moving along ahead of time, and you sort of, you know, move right along with it, so.
I think the next step would probably be sitting down with Bill Rother and talking about how you would finance it and
Yeah, we'll sit down.
how the financing would be phased.
Bill's on vacation unfortunately, but yeah, that's
Yeah, you'd have to
definitely,
look at what the bonding costs are going to be and, you know, when the bonds would kick in, because you don't really have to start paying the bond until the construction is done. So I think that would probably be that, and then look at the design costs and how we would fund the design costs up front prior to going out to bid and getting, you know, an actual number for the full bond.
yep,
And
that's
that's another
something
conversation.
I'll do with them. One other thing, keep it in the back of your mind, hopefully everyone will agree to name the court Justice Alan Smith building. So maybe
Nice
something
court.
could be
He'll
engraved.
finally get his Sally door
Yeah, right. And maybe something
Yeah.
can be engraved as you
And
do
an
your
elevator.
design now.
and an elevator.
It's up to the
Right
board
in the
to
basement,
decide,
absolutely. They
you
carry
know,
the
but
records.
Those are all things that, are all things
that,
that come
that's a
into the
final
scope.
touch though,
Yeah,
but keep it in
exactly.
the back of your mind, you're right.
On a somewhat related topic, I think we also need to press the state regarding the Armory building. That's something that we've been handcuffed with in terms of
Yes.
what the use is allowed with it. I think we need to explore it to see if there's other options for that, to possibly sell it or lease it out or whatever the case may be. But I think we need to push hard to the state to see what we can do with that building.
Can you look into that? Can you start the?
I had spoken
Can you
to
start the
Assemblywoman Giglio about it briefly.
Okay.
She suggested that the board compile a letter from the board asking the state permission to sell it, lease it, to have more authority over it than we do currently. Because right now, we're restricted to law enforcement or recreation use.
The sale of that property could go towards this project
Right.
as well.
And in talking to Ken and Drew about that building, quite
Yeah.
honestly, it probably needs to be bulldozed in terms of trying to retrofit it or redo it inside. There's so many issues that it would probably be better just to have it demoed.
It's still with remediation, it's asbestos, right?
Lead.
Lead.
Asbestos.
Yeah.
It was built, it was designed and built, the problem with it is it was designed and built as a military facility. So when you go inside the building, it's all concrete walls, floors, and ceilings, all exposed pipes and heating. There's no place to put ductwork. There's no place to run wires. Everything's on the surface of the building. So it really becomes difficult and expensive to get any kind of utilities into it and make it look like a, you know, a business facility as opposed to a military facility. That's the problem with it, really. I think knocking it down, but I know the car dealerships would probably be very interested in it. You know, there was some inquiries, it's, you know, if it was up for sale, the land.
You know, what's interesting is I did a little survey, I did a little research on all the armories in New York State, and it seems like what has been put on Riverhead, you know, it's gotta be used for this. A lot of them went to housing, some of them went to the arts, et cetera, and they've all been, and they're beautiful. So, okay.
Well, we're finally seeing a possible actionable plan
Been a long road.
after all these years.
A lot of options and a lot of
Thanks,
years.
Marty.
Yes, thank you guys, you've done a
Yeah,
great job
Marty,
so
thank
far.
you so much. Marty has spent countless hours on this.
Yes,
How
I
about
have.
years?
Yes.
2009.
Oh, actually, yes, without a doubt.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Marty, and Drew, don't go anywhere,
Oh,
because you're up next again. Concerning a discussion regarding the dredging of Reeves Creek. Welcome back.
Hello. Does it, do we have a cursor for that
Ken,
pointer?
oh, you need a laser.
Yeah.
can you provide a copy of whatever's here?
Excuse me?
Could rent Marty's.
Can you provide a copy of
Sure,
whatever's going to be
maybe Marty
given
will
to
lend you
us so we
his.
can put it online later on?
It's just outside.
Okay, give
Yeah, I
it to
think
Devin.
Marty's gonna send it over as a PDF.
Okay, he's gonna send that also?
Yeah, he's
Okay.
gonna send it over
Right.
to me, I'll get it to him.
Well, I was talking about, didn't he have something for the creek?
Oh, yes, we'll send you that as well.
Yeah,
Here's it on a
so you
flash
would send
drive.
that, yeah. Thank you.
Pass it with the laser. Take the place of the door.
Good thing there's not a cat.
Hey, Tim. No finding for the extra window.
It's nice that you can give me that corner office, Tim.
It's-
Oh, yeah,
Wait, how come yours is red?
I probably
That's
you're on a
town
different
board.
page.
This town board, this town board.
I don't have any wards, so I need the less wall
How come
space.
this
Are you
is
on
town
4-4?
board?
You're on 4-5.
Oh, okay. Wait, yes, same. So no finding for the extra window?
You got all the wards and stuff, so you need more wall space.
Oh,
We don't have a conference room.
no finding for the extra window.
You ready?
Frank
Ready?
We are ready.
got all the awards in his.
Okay, so the town received a petition from residents and friends of White's Lane, which is near Akabak, in Jamesport near Meeting House Creek. The petition was for the town to apply to the Suffolk County DPW so that the county would put Reeves Creek on their dredge list, their annual dredge list to dredge. Right now, it hasn't been dredged since 1964. The constituents of the White's Lane community applied in 1985 to the county and applied in 1996 to the county. And both applications were rejected on the basis of having no public benefit or minimal public benefit. Since then, since 1996, I've spoken both to the DPW Division of Waterways, who heads up the dredging program for the county, and I've also spoken in depth to the Bay Constable and the former Bay Constable, and neither of the three of those individuals have seen any public benefit increase or improvement since 1996. Still, we received several communications from Lee Zeldin's office requesting that we apply for the White's Lane community to have it dredged. So we had to complete a screening application. It's a long process. In order just to apply, you have to provide sediment sampling in accord with New York DEC standards, and you also have to provide a hydrographic survey which shows pre-existing channel floor conditions, proposed channel floor conditions, and total volume of spoils. Okay. Okay, so we dredged 6 creeks, or the county dredges 6 creeks. East Creek, Hawks, Limog, Cases, Baywoods Cove, and we don't dredge Reeves. This is Reeves Creek right here. And then the last is Meeting House Creek right here. Next slide. Okay, yeah, that's gonna be way too hard for everyone to see. Go to the next one. Okay, so Reeves Creek. Reeves Creek extends from Meeting House, which is in here. The channel begins right here for Reeves Creek and runs north-south, and this is a sequential series of photos proceeding from Meeting House north through Reeves Creek. And you can see the shorelines. By and large, most of it is developed. There is some sandy areas. Most of them are covered with native beach vegetation. Next slide. And here's an example of the beach vegetation.
Drew, can you use the microphone? It's not picking up
Oh,
on,
how's
Yeah.
that?
better.
Okay. So again, this area is either privately owned or covered with beach vegetation, or else it's hardened. Next slide. This is about midway down Reeves Creek. And again, keep in mind that there's 24,000 cubic yards that have to be dredged from Reeves Creek Channel. And as you can see, there's not a lot of area to place the spoils. The other issue is, there's a lot of mud and roadway runoff, and it hasn't been dredged since 1964, so there's probably gonna be some contaminants. If there are contaminants in the mud, then the town is responsible for disposing of those contaminated spoils or finding another place upland to dispose of the spoils. Next. Okay, this is the end. This is Peconic Bay Boulevard. And again, more private land, more docks. So, the total cost for sediment sampling is $67,000. The cost for a hydrographic survey is $18,500 for a total of $75,500. And as far as, again, public benefits, I spoke with the people who would know, and they indicated that they really don't see any improvements since the last two times the application was made to the county. The other issue, obviously, is having the total area to dispose of the sand after the mud is removed. And we just don't have, we really don't see the space. Next, is that it? And that's still more of the end. Go ahead, Chip. Keep going. And again, there's the end. This is kind of a beginning view of Reeves Creek heading from south to north. And here's another. Down here is Meeting House Creek, and you can kind of see the channel going up through Reeves Creek. Next. So all these photos were taken by Riverhead PD drone, which was a tremendous help to us. So right now, where we're at is the board's got to make a decision which direction we want to go. In order to progress any further, we would have to put up $75,000, have the sediment sampling done, have the hydrographic survey completed, and then we would have to prepare the screening application, submit it to the county, and then the county would make a determination whether or not there would be a hearing or not, whether it would even go that far.
So we could spend $75,000 and the county could say no go.
Past history and my discussions with the Bay Constables and Division of Waterways and DPW would indicate that there's very slim chance for the county to approve this based on public benefit.
Drew, do you know if any of these waterways would impact any aquacultural entities that are growing oysters or clams? We have a very robust aquaculture farming here in Riverhead, and I just would be upset if it was going to impact their practices.
The reason I'd say no is because this channel Well, if the channel was maintained, I'd definitely say no, but, maintaining the channel allows boats to go in and out or navigate, and there's really no shellfish in the channels.
Okay.
And that's the only thing that's gonna be dredged. We're not doing anything, they wouldn't be doing anything new, but again, since 1964, it hasn't been dredged, so I'm sure there's something in there. But that's not, a commercial aquaculture
Okay.
area, no.
I can tell you from personal experience, some of the largest chowder clams I've ever seen in my life are on the bay bottom, outside the entrance to that creek. It's like walking in the sound, but it's clams that you're walking on. And it's not open for public consumption because it's illegal to clam there. I'm just speaking that I have walked on that bottom, and I have
look at them
scooped
and
and
put them
picked
back.
them up. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And they're huge. I mean, it's because it hasn't been clammed or hasn't been open for years.
I'm sure the whole thing's like that. Any other questions?
So, to Ken's point, I mean, we spend $75,000 and DPW says no. What have we gained?
Nothing.
So, and another question is there grant money available for that $75,000?
I haven't looked into that, only because the $75,000 would be risky in my mind, at best, to put up and get any kind of a positive result. You'd be taking a big risk.
Can we,
But I have not looked into grants, no.
can we tell, like, can we make a request at all to the county that if the sampling turned out to be, good and met all their requirements, I mean, can they give us a potential answer of, well, as long as the sampling was clean and everything came up, then yes, we would be willing to proceed, or is there any way to get an advanced idea of where the county would stand before spending that?
Before doing the sediment sampling,
Yeah.
like I said, I spoke with the higher-ups in the Division of Waterways, and they're in charge of all 6 of our creeks, plus the other 75 active sites that they try to dredge every year. And they said there's been no improvement in public benefits since 1996. So the chances of this going through, according to them, not me, are slim.
Meaning public benefit, meaning that there's not new docks and new people in the area that would require use of Reeves Creek? What does public benefit mean?
Okay, so public benefit means there's no public beaches, there's no public boat ramp, there's no services such as gasoline or food, there's no public parking.
Just
Everything
taking
that a
care
public
of
beach
a
has.
list of private houses.
Joe, I was in a meeting in Sag Harbor yesterday with the supervisors, and there was a representative from Selden's office there, and they indicated that they were putting in funding for one of our creeks, so I think we should follow up on that.
Who's the representative?
Mark Willie?
Mark Woolley's the person who's been representing Lee Zeldin's office and in contact with us over Reeves Creek.
Okay, I know he read off a list of funding for creeks, and Riverhead was on there, so we might want to follow up.
Yeah, that could be anything, but I'll follow up.
Okay.
Anything else?
Well, I'd like to explore it further to see if we could get some funding, to see if maybe the congressman's office may have some funding available, or I'm not sure how it works, but it's something to explore at least anyway. I'm not in favor of just throwing $75,000 out the window to
And
know
hope.
we're not going to be able to dredge it. But it has been a long time since it was cleaned out.
Thing is that even if the county approves it, once we dredge it, there's nothing for the public there. We've dredged it so that the local residents can use it. I mean, we can and obviously someone could navigate in and out, but there's nothing for them there.
How many residents' properties do you think are impacted by that?
I know that the petition had over 100 signatures on it, but that could be friends from Florida, you know?
Snowbirds,
Is there 100 properties, you're saying, or just,
No, I'm looking at
Not
the
even
docs
close.
now. So
20 houses?
what's low tide, do we know what low tide is there? I mean, what, do we know what the low tide is in the creek? I'm just curious, because that's what they're looking to do, right, is to dredge it, and I don't know what,
Well, even at low tide, there's barely a couple of feet of draft
that's what I'm wondering.
through the channel right now, yeah.
Okay, well then,
Thank you,
get back
Jim.
to us
yeah.
and let us know how you make out with the congressman's office and see if there's some availability. If there isn't, there isn't, but I would at least like to explore everything that we can.
Thank
If
you,
need be,
Joe.
Drew, we'll get you out there with a shovel and let you start digging.
I'll keep
Bring
all
back
the
some of those clams.
I'll keep all the clams.
Just watch those clams, they're huge.
I think
If,
that's the
if
same.
we said, if we didn't do a project like that, if we declined to do it, is there even feasibility that residents, the reason I was asking how many houses, if there's 20 homes or 30 homes there, and the residents themselves wanted to pay for the, the sampling to be done to get, to potentially come back, is that something that can be done, or like?
Yeah, there's no reason why it couldn't. I just don't know how willing anyone is to
So
pay.
obviously funding's a concern, but if they said we wanted to, and wanted to explore this as far as they can, if it impacted 20, 30 homes, and they were willing to do that to try to get on the county's list of dredging. If it's only impacting really private homes in the area, can the expense be potentially borne by those residents?
And the secondary expense of us having to dispose of the sand and everything else.
I totally
we would have
forgot
to-
about that. Any contaminated material,
Yeah,
we pay for.
yeah, we're responsible, I
Yeah,
think, so it's
and
gonna be
it's
a
not
little
cheap.
costly, right?
So trying to look at both sides,
Oh, maybe
how
they
you
won't
can
pay.
help them or not, maybe,
Yeah.
Right?
live in the middle of Wading River, if you could build a creek all the way to my house, and I could get a boat dock.
Yeah, I went through this once with Wading River Creek, and they rejected it for the same reason, no public benefit. And yet,
Stuff.
at the end of it, there's a boat ramp and
Yeah,
a dock,
I know.
What creek was that?
Wading
Wading
River
River.
Creek. It's kind of a good thing because it's the second most polluted water body of its size on Long Island next to Brushes Creek. So it's good that the county's not dredging it for people to use it.
Well, thank you, enjoy
All
your
right.
weekend, Joe.
Thanks, Drew.
No problem.
Okay, our next discussion
I have to
item,
just turn the microphone off, Drew. We'll echo in here
the next
otherwise.
discussion item, I'll
You're
ask
asking-
Eric Howard and Dawn Thomas to
You're
come
asking
forward
for
to
a lot.
discuss matters surrounding a change in chapter 301. This has been a hot chapter lately, huh? Chapter 301, firearms business uses as related to the sale of firearms in DC-1 districts. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Eric, did you want to start
Yeah, okay.
discussion off, please?
So we've previously come before the board and we had a public hearing on implementing the recommendations from the pattern book. And now this sort of builds on that is, once you have, with the revitalization efforts that we're doing downtown, we have our, pattern book and guidelines on how we want the buildings to look and everything. The next step with that is sort of locking in what kind of uses and businesses we like down there.
Okay.
And in proceeding with that, as the next step, after the pattern book portion into the zoning, something, kind of stood out, firearm type use business. Now, that's not something that we want to, I think, ban entirely. So I think the purpose of this is really not so much to say it's prohibited in the downtown districts, it's really to identify zoning use districts that we want that type of business cited in. So what we've done is we've put together some very preliminary draft legislation and have had conversations with Dawn about it and conversations with Greg, Jeff, and Matt. And we're sort of working through that, and we wanted to bring it to the board and, field any concerns you have on it, recommendations, answer questions that you have about it, and continue on with our drafting of the legislation from there.
And I would just add that, we've been working on a lot of projects for downtown. We're looking at a lot of public activation for downtown and really creating that family-friendly environment. We've discussed this with the marijuana legislation, that downtown proper, DC1 in particular, is not the right location for that. We're working on the next thing, which would be paraphernalia type stores, those things that we really hope would be located outside of our immediate downtown area, which we hope will become very active very soon. So this is just one of the things that we're looking at, what we think might not work on our main street and in the immediate downtown area for a number of reasons. So I think, that's really the impetus for this.
Yes.
That's it in a nutshell. I mean, honestly, with all the work and money and time and effort that we're trying to put in downtown to make it a great place, family-friendly, nothing against gun shops, but I don't think they belong in that area. And I think there are better areas situated for them. Just coming to mind, the gun shop that we have in town now up on West Main Street is out of the downtown area, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But to open up a gun shop downtown, I just don't think that's a good look for what we're trying to promote downtown.
And because of the licensing requirements, it's not really necessarily a window shop type of a use. It's really more of a destination retail type of use, as you said, like Bates and Barrels.
Right.
It's in a recreational area. They have recreational amenities associated with the shop, but, downtown proper, not the right spot is what we're thinking.
Yeah, we don't want to see gun signs up on Main Street right next to a ice cream shop and a
Exactly.
playground.
Exactly,
So
just not a
off
good
Main
fit.
Street and other areas, but definitely not. So,
So-
do you have a copy of the draft legislation later on? Can you provide me a copy with them?
Yes, yeah,
Provide the board
once
with a
we
copy?
get something a little more
little more.
final, we'll be ready to provide that. What we're looking at is incorporating definitions, which we don't have in our zoning code, chapter 301 right now. We're gonna be implementing boundaries, distances from other areas, residential uses, schools, churches, libraries, et cetera, where it's not going to be an as-of-use right under what we've put together right now. It's gonna be a special permit. There's, together with the special permit, submitting a security plan, gives us the layout, the provisions that they're putting forth for security. We're trying to be as comprehensive as possible with it. So, it's, still being revised, but any recommendations or, thoughts that any of you have about this,
Has there been
please.
an application for a gun shop? I know there was a recreation thing, but that's off Main Street, but was there?
Right now, the only thing that I'm aware of is the Luxfer building. I believe there was a proposed firing range, would be
Okay.
wholly indoors.
That's before the planning board though, right?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
okay, they'll address that with the code. Okay.
Yeah, I think that about covers it.
That covers it?
Yeah, if
Okay.
you're, in favor, we'll keep working.
Yes,
absolutely.
Hopefully get it on for public
I am.
hearing at our next meeting and kind of just
Yeah.
get it done.
Yeah, hear from the public on it, any concerns, and if you have any questions on it, please let me know.
And then we'll be with the paraphernalia shops next.
Yes,
Okay,
good.
good, thank you so much.
All right, very good.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn and Eric. I believe you're up again, this time with Greg Berman regarding possible code amendment regarding anaerobic digesters. Greg, good morning, and
Good morning.
do you want to start off?
Thank you. Yeah, so what I've got before you is a draft code that we've been working on. It would actually be a twofold. There would be two changes that would be made. One of them would be to incorporate the definition of an anaerobic digester into our 301-3 zoning code. Anaerobic digester would be any facility which accepts, treats, or processes wastewater treatment sludges, biosolids, manure, food waste, fats, oils, greases, energy crops, glycerin, silage, or any similar material for the purpose of producing biogas and digestate. We would then also be tightening up our definition of permitted uses and prohibited uses within the industrial A zoning district. Right now, the code reads that basically all industrial uses are permitted in the industrial A zoning district with the exception of the following uses which shall be prohibited. And it provides a list which is not a completely exhaustive list, but the general understanding of that code was that it was to prohibit non-nuisance industries. If you look at those list of prohibited uses, a lot of them are detrimental to the environment, either by way of like noise, smoke, dust, gas, traffic, etc. So we would be tightening up that definition to state that all non-nuisance industrial uses are permitted in the industrial A zoning use district with the exception of the following, inclusive of but not limited to, which shall be prohibited. We would be adding the anaerobic digester to that prohibited use. And just for the board's reference, the code does define non-nuisance industry as any industry which is not detrimental to the environment in which it is located by reason of the emissions of smoke, odor, dust, gas, glare, heat, liquid, fire hazards, industrial waste, transportation, and traffic. So the code does define those non-nuisance industries, and really, I think this code amendment would get ahead of a lot of the more nuisance industrial uses that we would be seeing potentially coming into the industrial A zone.
Greg, I have a question. What made you bring this up? Was there possibly someone?
So there is
An
an application
application?
currently pending before the Zoning Board of Appeals for an interpretation on a code section. We had spoken about this last week. Eric was in the meeting, Councilman Hubbard, Bob Kern, Jeff Murphy. We were in there really trying to get ahead of this anaerobic digester because the general thought is that this is a much more significant use than should be dealt with through a ZBA interpretation. There are some significant, potentially significant environmental impacts. When you look at the potential siting of where these could go, and it's also worth noting that those industrial A prohibitions, they're also cited and referenced in the PIP zoning district, which is really what brought this to the forefront. So if the ZBA were to render a determination on that use within the PIP, it could also then expand into industrial A.
And if I could just kick on, I'm switching my hat to zoning board of appeals council hat. So the zoning board had this application before them as an interpretation. The use doesn't exist in the code, so I think that's one initial issue is how would the board interpret something that doesn't exist in the code? And also, they're not the legislators, you're the legislators. The zoning board is the judiciary, really, effectively, of our town. And so their goal is really to, for instance, and I give a very simple example, if someone came in with a frozen yogurt store and the code said ice cream store, well, that's an interpretation, I think. That could be, in a very simple way, but this is a lot bigger of an issue, in particular because we have a solid waste management plan. And so that plan, has been adopted by the board and really should be implemented in the code. And so the zoning board determined that it was really a matter for the town board. And so I think tonight they'll have, tonight or soon thereafter, they'll have a determination probably referring it back to you, not presupposing that decision, but I think that's where they're going with it, rather to leave the legislation to the legislature and the judiciary function to the judiciary. So we're also looking at the referral process too a little bit to just make sure that we're referring the things that the zoning board is capable of managing.
I, for one, am going to need time to digest this.
No pun intended, okay.
Pun intended.
Well, and this sort of,
Honestly, from everything I've been exposed to in terms of the digesters, they're too new. There's just not enough data out there on them to show what the long-term effect is of it. They sound like they could be very dangerous, combustible at times, I should say. And for me, it's years away before I would even think or consider let's see somebody else be the guinea pig.
And whatever you're adopting should be looked at in conjunction with that solid waste management plan, so to determine whether the use is consistent. So there's probably some other solid waste management items that you might want to look at when you're thinking about this.
Right.
And that also sort of dovetails into another recommendation that I was going to make, which is we currently have the solar moratorium in place, and we have our comprehensive plan, which is, halfway done or a little more than halfway done. And so one of the things that I was going to recommend to the board is that we expand that moratorium to include all renewable energy systems. Right now, that moratorium extends to, it's the end of October this year, and it provides for a one-year renewal, by the town board. And I think that a lot of these systems, our planning department doesn't know a tremendous amount about. We also don't know right now, with the pendency of the comprehensive plan, where we're gonna wanna site these things. So I think it would be prudent to take a look at expanding the moratorium to include those systems until we can field more information about them and feel more comfortable considering where we can legislate the zoning for those systems.
The only information that's out there on them is really put out by the companies that want to build them. And of course, that's all going to be positive information, and like I said, that's why we need way more time to see how these things are. If people are going to want to gamble and put them in their communities, go for it, but we'll learn from your mistakes or from your successes, so.
Right, and we don't have a lot of them defined or, cleanly dealt with in our zoning. So I think until we can tackle that in our zoning and make sure that we have it right and we're comfortable with it and we understand what the impacts to the community are gonna be, I think it would be, I would strongly suggest expanding the moratorium for now.
So I appreciate your comments, Eric, and I would say this to the planning department. Digesters are all over Europe. My suggestion is that you reach out to some of the towns that do have digesters and get information on them. And that's what I would do, rather than to, that's how we get educated, as opposed to let's put a moratorium and wait months and months and months. Whether it's this project or any other project that we don't understand that does exist in other parts of the world that are a little bit more advanced than we might be.
Well, the purpose of the moratorium would be to sort of suspend taking in applications, because once you have an application for it, our planning department has to act on it. So if our zoning legislation isn't ready to deal with that, then that's a problem for us.
No, I
So
understand.
the purpose of the moratorium wouldn't be to necessarily say, we're just not taking applications. It would be to allow our planning department to make those inquiries and then to bring recommendations back to you to supplement our zoning code.
So what a moratorium says to me, it says a lot of time. I can make 2 phone calls or 3 phone calls today to towns in Europe and get the information that I need, is my point. So I don't understand, and I think that's also why government moves slow and also fails.
I'm not
I think
opposed
so.
to the anaerobic digesters. Philosophically, I think they'd probably have a place in our community, but I agree with the idea of waiting until this comprehensive plan is put into play so that we can delineate exactly where these should go.
I think that the idea of an anaerobic digester works and can be beneficial, but I would have concerns about the impact of the surroundings. I don't want to be the receiving capital of New York City to come out to Riverhead, and how that works with, multitudes of tractor trailers and bringing inches. So it's more about not just the anaerobic digester, but what happens in the surrounding environment. How does it work with our roads and the traffic and how we're moving, these, and what specifically is being brought there? Is it specifically clean food waste, or is it septic waste from New York City?
Right.
And I think that, it's been mentioned that they have the ability to break down our leaf collection in our town, but I think that you can only put a very minimal amount of leaves in during the process, and I would be concerned about us backholding leaves and so forth on site, and so there's other issues So maybe it's a secret review that has to be done of the whole area to determine what are the effects. The anaerobic digester is like the mainframe works and it does something, but how does it, what's coming in and how's it affecting the surroundings? And I think that needs to be looked at greatly.
And in terms of siting, you know, you're gonna wanna think, and you're gonna wanna have the information to think about this, but where it's going, what's already there, and if it's undeveloped, what else do you wanna put there? Because if you put something like this there, that's a pretty impactful use, and it's gonna really restrict the potential to attract other businesses or industries there.
Does this have like a capacity load? Is it a small anaerobic digester that's designed to take care of the east end of Long Island? Or is it a massive facility that intends to take care of New York City? Those are the things we need to.
Well, so, you know, Heather, Matt, and myself have done some research. You know, we did, you know, an exhaustive search. These facilities, Councilman Kearns, said there are facilities throughout Europe. There have been explosions at facilities in Europe, specifically in the UK. There have been deaths at these facilities. So, I mean, again, it is something with the potential for significantly
Are
negative.
these older ones or newer ones? Just, I'm curious about that.
I can provide the entire board with the information.
2009, I think was the last. Hi, Bob.
Hi.
I think 2009 and
2009.
2010, we have information from the UK related to a fish die-off and to an explosion. A lot in the UK that they have are smaller operations. They're usually farm-based because there's two types that we really look at. There's a small anaerobic digester, which is kind of for on-site use to offset your electricity. And then there's a large anaerobic digester where you're taking in material from septic, areas, sewer treatment plants, crops, stuff like that. So it's where the town wants to go. If it's, a smaller operation or something that's regional, is a problem. And Bob, also to your point, we've looked in the state where these are allowed, and most codes of towns that are similar in size to Riverhead say no to a larger operation, but maybe an on-site specific use is allowable.
To Ken's point, there is one being under construction at Yaphank as we speak.
Yeah.
Well, I do have knowledge of these, and I do have knowledge concerning the ones in Europe. And they're usually put in places where, in informal communities, that don't have a waste disposal system.
Correct.
We have our waste disposal system. And so we don't need to make that connection, having our own waste disposal, than having this alternative. Again, usually you find them in third world countries and in Africa, in Brazil, because there is no waste sewage system, and it affects the entire community, the health. Some of these communities that they're put into, the kids only live until 5 years. That's the average. The average person lives at 35 years. There's no medical, there's no road. So you would, instead of having sludge coming down in the middle of the street, they circumvent the pools of water going in outside of these informal communities. And so they are somewhat effective. I don't know if they belong here right now, especially in Riverhead, and I do have some concerns regarding the environmental destruction that it can do for now and for the future. It is a fairly new technology, but doesn't belong here right now. So I'm glad you're following through on that. And does anyone else have anything else to say on that?
No, and Bob's reference to Europe, just because Europe does it doesn't mean it's right. I think history kind of proves that. So I don't want them here in Riverhead. I don't think it's time for them. I think there's got to be a lot more research done on them.
A lot.
And better and improved models before we would ever get into that.
Yes. And I think we should also be in tune with the sewer superintendent.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm sure he could provide some insight as to, and I do have a lot of resources for you, printed resources if you need them.
Thanks.
Definitely.
I'll just reiterate that I understand anaerobic digestion. I've done a lot of research on them, and I think they are beneficial again. But I think we have to look at the scale in which we're looking at. If we have local foods and things like that we're going to recycle and benefit and help our local farmers is one thing. And if it's agricultural based and it gives us self-sustaining abilities here in the town of Riverhead, that's one concept and idea that I think is great. But I don't want to be the receiving capital of New York City.
Well, Councilman Rothwell gets his information from his son Kenny, who's an expert in the field, so I just wanted to make that point clear.
I have that
And
advantage.
they'd stop at Yaphank before they came out here anyway.
Now they're trying to move further up east, to the east, and hit Hutz first. All right,
And
so,
I would just quickly reiterate that, when we talk about moratoriums or prohibiting things in certain zoning use districts, that's not necessarily intended to make a statement as to how we feel about that particular type of business, okay? It's really, for you, more of a statement as to how you're gonna consider where they should go, right? And where you don't want them to go, understanding the rest of the community, how it's laid out, what other industries and, farmland we have here, waterways, tourism. We just want to make sure that when we put things like this in, we want to get it right.
okay.
I favor a moratorium, for sure.
Okay, yes. You want to move forward with that, Eric?
Yes,
please?
thank you.
You so much, everyone. Enjoy your holiday. Thank you. Okay, so that's going to conclude our discussion items for today. And in a moment, I'm going to ask for a first and a second to enter into executive session. The agenda, which was added, one additional item was added this morning. First, we have legal matters surrounding real property law with Tennenberg, Lipinski, Brown, and Howard. Then we have personnel matters surrounding the change of status in an employee, which is Howard, and matters surrounding the change of status of an employee, which is Mancini. And then we have a contractual matter surrounding the contractual agreement with H2M, which is also with Mancini. Can I please have a first and a second to
So
go
moved.
into executive session? Thank you. All opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Be well, everyone. Enjoy your holiday. Looks like it's going to be a great weather, and we'll see you out there. We have the Mosaic Festival
Sunday.
on
Sunday's
Sunday.
the
We'll be
Mosaic
out there.
Festival.
Try to bring out
Downtown.
my artistic skills if I have any. Not sure if I don't, but again, everyone do enjoy, and please be safe. Okay, I think they need.